Great. Welcome to our Hot Part Speaking Community Call this month. It's amazing to have you. Welcome to everyone that is a first timer with us, and welcome everyone that's pretty consistently regularly here with us every single month. Thank you for allowing us to inspire you and uplift you and uplevel your speaking and your business in the greatest ways. Well, if you're, if you're not a member yet of our Hot Power Global Nation, which is where, all of this started to take shape, right? It's, again, let me just introduce myself and tell you more about who I am and what I do, and then introduce our amazing, inspiring guest today. Well, you know that if you know me, you know that I'm the founder of Hot Powered Business. My mantra and our business mantra is speak up, scale up, impact the world. And over the years, we really helped hundreds of clients from more than 50 countries to really go professional with their speaking. And as a result of it, to double, triple, even quadruple their income with our framework, which is called Voice to Millions. I have been a paid speaker myself for more than 20 years, and I have been on stages in more than 30 countries now on 5 continents. And, I know that you are here because you have a voice. You have a powerful message that you want to get out in a greater way. And if you really want to step up with your speaking and up-level your speaking and use it to grow your business further as you boost your visibility being on more stages online and live, then we have something to announce to you today. We are running our monthly speaker community calls. However, we have something really juicy coming your way later this month and early next month as well. In October, we're going to run a masterclass that, everyone that is always in our masterclass loves them. It's a masterclass to really uplifting your speaking game to a different level. And it's a masterclass on the 2nd of October on how you develop a top speaker mindset and how you can go professional with your speaking and start making money or earning more and making a bigger impact with your speaking in 30 days. So if you want to uplift your speaking game in 30 days, we will walk you through the 8 major steps on how to make that happen. And as we know, everything starts in our mind, in our heart. We'll talk about how you develop a top speaker mindset. And Annalena, who's here with us from our team, please share the link with that. Make sure you select and get one of the seats right away. It's a complimentary session. We're not charging anything for it. However, just know it's priceless and we love to have you there. So please start, registering right away to secure your seat for that. But this session is not about me or, even about our business. It's all about you and about our amazing guest, right, that will inspire you and uplift you today. And as you know, and I tell you what we talk about today in a second, however, I like you to know that you can ask your questions anytime, and you also leave some time at the end so you can ask more questions that are, specifically important to you personally. Also, when you're not speaking, please mute yourself so we have a sparkling recording. And know that this is a video session, so when you're speaking up and you unmute yourself, and we invite you to unmute yourself when you have a question, know that you will be recorded, okay? But I know we're all speakers, we love to be heard and seen, so that I'm sure you would rather welcome. So what is our session about today? Today we talk about what are the 3 keys to writing a rapidly rising #1 international best-selling book. And I know that a credential best-selling author has become commonplace, and a lot of people call themselves best-selling author, but the credential of #1 international bestseller sparks something really different in the mind of the public and people. It really means international recognition of your high-quality work at a highest level. And so in today, this Hot Part session is really a heartfelt session. I have invited an amazing guest, and she is the #1. She is not only a #1 best-selling author, she really is going to teach us the key ingredients to creating a rapidly rising book that can hit #1 international bestseller status, and not only reach it, but stay there. And I know she's helped a lot of people to keep their books on the best-selling list, not only for days, not only for weeks, not only for months, but even longer than that, right? So today we'll talk about why some books rise like a rocket and stay on top, but others are flat in the pan. And you want yours to rise like a rocket and stay on top, right? We also talk about the key factor in writing a highly compelling book worthy of bestseller status, and how you get your book to flow out of you really rapidly and powerfully through the writing process. And let me introduce this wonderful lady that we have as a guest speaker today. She is amazing. And, she is really the embodiment of brilliance, not only when it comes to writing and publishing books, but also how to really boost your influence and how to bring a global tribe of influencers together to not only create best-selling books, but really lift every single person up. Okay, she is the she is the #1 international best-selling author of Mass Influence, The Habits of the Highly Influential, which is now a #1 in 7 countries. As the founder and chair of the Evolutionary Business Council, of which I've been a member, and I was blessed to be invited by her personally, okay, and it really changed me and brought me and my business to an entirely different level as well. As the founder and chair of the Evolutionary Business Council, she works with people around the world wanting to create grassroots change in communities and businesses. She really teaches leaders how to create and use best-selling books to start not only, their status as being an expert, but really to start a movement. Through her bestseller courses, she really also helped hundreds of authors write and launch best-selling books, a lot of them becoming #1 bestsellers internationally. She is a 4-time best-selling author herself, and she believes that we can shift the thinking of society just by understand how to generate the spread of positive word of mouth. And she is one of the founders of the Vista Mundo Conscious community in Costa Rica, where I'm going to go to in November, which is where she is joining us from today. So welcome with me, my most amazing friend, influencer, change maker, and published author, Teresa de Grosbois. Teresa, it's amazing to have you with us today.
Monique, thank you so much. What a beautiful, generous introduction. And I'm actually in Canada. I just got to Canada the other day.
Why did I say Vista Mundo?
But I normally live in Costa Rica, and Vista Mundo, where our retreat center is. So just lovely to meet you all. Roger, especially lovely to meet you, because I know you're coming to our book writers retreat in November. So I'm looking forward to meeting you in person and working on your book project with you. Okay, so this is a huge topic. Like, there's a lot to know here. So my goal is today to give you sort of an overarching picture of what's involved with getting to #1 international bestselling author. And then we're going to do a deep dive on a few of the skill sets that are the things that tend to stop most of my students. Sound good? So in other words, the idea is to get you rapidly in action and powerfully working on your book projects, but also with a clear understanding of, like, what's the end goal of everything I need to put in place here to make this all work together. Sound good? Give me a thumbs up or something if you're in alignment with that. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I like to use the slide deck just to keep us, on agenda. But the reality is I may deviate from the slide deck in moments. So let me just go over here. And I think I just need to hit slideshow. Is everybody seeing my slides okay? Give me a thumbs up or something. Everybody sees that? Good. Okay. So we're talking about the 3 keys of writing a book that not only rapidly rises to #1 international bestseller, but stays there. Okay. And when it comes down to it, this is nothing more than a series of steps you got to move through. Okay. So what would really help me a lot is if you guys would very quickly type in the chat for me, tell me about your book projects. So, like, what genre are you writing in? If you have a title, what's the title? Or if you have at least a working title, what's that? How far along are you? Pardon me. I thought there was one more there, but there isn't. And just give me a sense of what you're working on in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing for a minute because that will help me. Sorry, guys, I'm Zoom challenged. I'm trying to figure out how to get back to the control bar. I want to be able to see the chat. Okay. Okay, beautiful. How not to retire. I love that, Jackie. That's a powerful topic. Anybody else got one? Roger, I know you're driving, Roger, so is it possible for you to unmute for a minute and let me know a little bit about your project?
Yeah, actually I pulled over. I was typing, but
Oh, beautiful. Okay. I just don't want you to have an accident, so.
No, I'm in a safe spot. So
Good.
So the name of my book's going to be The Spark in the Dark. And it's basically subtitled The Journey of Self-Discovery.
Beautiful.
And it's basically going to be about my journey, basically just through life and dealing with trauma, and how that basically going within myself to see the mechanics of how my thoughts and feelings are actually affecting me and why, and how I got through all these traumas. Okay. Yep.
So it's a self-help book?
Yes, it is.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, that gives me a good sense. And do you have a specific target audience in mind, Roger?
Honestly, my niche audience would be probably ages 45 and above. People that are probably coming close to retirement or retired, looking for direction, basically empty nesters, that type of thing.
Beautiful. Thank you. And Anne, I see your title is Heartway. Say a little bit more about that project for me. Tell me a bit about it.
Heartway as opposition to headway. Everybody spend their life in their head. And that book is going to be Heartway, because this is how people can... I'm looking for retired pilots or retired people, or people who are empty nester as well and got an opening in their life to find what they always wanted to do and never had the time to do. So I'm taking them into how they can discover who they really are, how all the belief we had and all the persona we've been wearing for years can really go in a bin, because who are you really? What is your passion? What is your dream? And how to get there.
So it's basically a self-help book then, or is it autobiography?
Well, it is a mix, because I had to do that.
So a combination, it's a self-help book that does storytelling that's autobiographical then, is what you're saying.
That is correct.
Powerful. Okay, beautiful. Thank you, Anne. Okay, so if the rest of you can type that information in the chat, it really helps me speak to your specific projects. So Chloe, Uta, if you've got a little bit more information, Jackie, feel free to type it in the chat for me, okay? I'm going to keep going though. So let me share my screen again. Okay, so a little bit about who I am in the context of what we're doing here, okay? As Monique said, I'm actually a 4-time best-selling author. My latest book, which you can see in the photo here, Mass Influence, was actually on the bestseller list for 8 years. And the only reason it dropped off is, as I retired from being the chair of the Evolutionary Business Council about 4 months ago, we also retired some of my systems and processes, and one of the systems we retired is the system that keeps my book on the bestseller list. Yes, you can have a system for that. So I just decided, because I'm really just stepping back and limiting the work I do now because I'm focusing in other directions, certain things we're no longer proceeding with. So what I want to do with you guys is I want to start with really big picture stuff and work backward from there. Okay, so you understand, here's the end goals you're trying to get to, and then we're going to reverse engineer what you need to understand to get there. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is what defines a best-selling book, okay? And there are different schools of thought on this. There are people in the publishing industry who will tell you a best-selling book is, once you've sold so many books, your book is automatically a bestseller. You hear numbers like 3,000, 5,000, 10,000. Apparently in Canada, a lot of publishers say we have a unique number in Canada. but nobody can agree on what that number is either. The more common definition of what a best-selling book means it's on a bestseller list, okay? Here are the 5 big lists, okay? Amazon, Barnes & Noble, USA Today, Wall Street Journal, and New York Times. In North America, those are the 5 dominant lists. There's also a few dominant lists in other countries. Like, so many of these span countries, but for example, in London, the London Times is also a dominant list. Germany has a really big list, and I'm trying to remember the name of it off the top of my head. I think it's, Monique probably knows. But the idea is, to be a bestseller, you're on one of those lists. And the longer you stay on the list, the more stickiness your book has as a bestseller. Of these lists, Amazon is the one that is dominantly, truly international. So I often teach people, focus first on Amazon, because if you raise the lists in Amazon, you can more easily raise in multiple countries at once, and that secures you the #1 international bestseller title. But that said, it doesn't mean you should ignore all the other lists out there too. It's always good if you're getting your book up on more than one list, okay? So, sorry, my slides are not progressing. I'm not sure what's going on here. There we go. So there's basically, in a nutshell, 3 keys to get to #1 international bestseller status and then stay there. Okay, I'm just going to give them to you right up front. First, you need a really highly compelling book. There are a lot of people in the industry that'll tell you can put any piece of crap on the bestseller list, and they're not wrong. With enough money and enough marketing, you can really put just about any book on the bestseller list. If it is a lousy book, it will not stay there. And now you have a really lousy book associated with your name. The other nickname for putting a lousy book on the bestseller list in the industry is called career suicide, because you do not want a piece of garbage associated with your name. So the foundation of a book that will have stickiness on the bestseller list is you got to make sure it's a really compelling, really great book. The second thing you need, and this is to get you on the list in the first place, is you need a lot of people talking about your book all at the same time. This is why we do so much work to teach people how to do effective book launches. You need relationships with influencers from all over the world. That's one of the reasons I started the Evolutionary Business Council, because I wanted to connect thought leaders and emerging thought leaders together so that when there were those key moments in their career, they would have lots of colleagues to reach out to for support when they need to do things like launch a book. The third thing you need is a system to keep your book on the lists. Okay, so you need to have thought through, how do you have some kind of lead magnet that involves drawing attention continuously to your book? So every time you do a podcast or an interview, a few more people will buy your book. Once you're at the top of the mountain, it's not that hard to stay at the top of the mountain. What you don't want to do is climb back down the mountain and then have to climb all the way back up again. Give me a thumbs up if you're following me, right? So once you are pushing a book up to #1 on the bestseller list, and preferably in multiple countries, before you hit go on the launch, you want to have some thought to what's going to be my system to keep it on the list once it's there, okay? My book, Mass Influence, had an 8-year run on the list, and it would still be there actually if I wasn't in the process of semi-retiring. I'm moving back into just doing book writing. I've stepped out of the Evolutionary Business Council chair position just as of a couple months ago. I'm still the founder of it. I'm still on the advisory board, but I'm scaling back a little bit because I'm getting to that age where I just want to do the stuff that I really find fun at this point. So this is what I really find fun, okay? So there tends to be 5 challenges writers face in terms of getting their book projects off the ground. The first and foremost is always they're blocked, right? And so one of the reasons we do a lot of exercises at my book writers retreat on blocking is that you want to get to the point where you have a powerful context of what you're writing, and then you can just channel the book onto the page, right? And I'm assuming, given that you're here with Monique Bloxell, sorry, I say that wrong all the time, that you are someone who's fairly tuned in energetically, because that's who she attracts as an audience, just because of who she is in the world. And you understand what I mean. You want to be tuning into your higher levels of consciousness and just pouring the book into that beautiful container you've created. And that really just involves some simple exercises to get you writing from a place of higher consciousness. The second thing, though, that tends to be a challenge for a lot of writers is a demanding environment. In other words, your ego will take you out of the game frequently, telling you the dishes need to be done, the garage needs to be cleaned, the lawn needs to be mowed. I've got this other meeting, I just got to get out of my way first. Give me a thumbs up or a hand up if you can relate to that, where you take yourself out of the equation, thinking you've just got to clear your plate first. That's a form of mind virus that tends to block us, right? The third is a lack of good structure. If you don't have a structure you're working on in your book, it's sort of like trying to build a house without blueprints. You know you need this piece, you know you need that piece, but you're trying to put it all together in something cohesive, and it's really hard to do because you don't know for sure what all the different pieces are that you're writing, right? So you need a good book outline that has a structure to each chapter so that as you proceed, it's very easy for you to say, okay, if I'm 10 chapters and each chapter has these 5 elements, that's 50 things I got to get done. And if I spend an hour doing each one, the whole book is done in 50 hours. That's how you can actually get a book written very rapidly, by having a really solid structure and breaking it down into little bite-sized pieces. And that's why actually our Write Your Book in a Week retreats in Costa Rica are very successful. When you have a really good structure you're writing into, it's not hard to get your book done in under a week, okay? The fourth challenge a lot of writers face is lack of community, right? Writing can be, it is a beautifully inward process, but you actually need people to bounce your work off of, to discuss ideas with, to brainstorm your book titles to, etc. And it's actually really important when you're writing your book that you not do it entirely in isolation. We highly encourage you to create a book posse, a group of people who are dedicated to helping you succeed with your book project. And the final block that most writers face is a lack of skill. Okay, so in other words, you kind of know how to write because you learned basic writing in grade school, but you don't necessarily know how to write in a really compelling way, in a way that's structured, that's going to keep your writer reading and not want to put the book down, right? When's the last time any of you read a book that you stayed up way too late because you couldn't put it down? Okay, I study books like that. What did the writer do to make the book so freaking compelling that you can't put the book down? And this is a lot of what I teach, okay? So I actually created a 6.5-step formula, and they actually spell the word launch when I developed my formula, okay? And the half step is just one that's just really small and little, so I call it a half step, okay? But this is the formula to get you past all those blocks, okay? The first one is lock yourself away, okay? If you've got a demanding environment, you either want to remove yourself from the demanding environment or remove the demands from the environment, right? Because otherwise your ego will constantly be telling you to keep going back to all these other things other than your book. The second thing, the A in launch, is align your outline with your audience. It's really important that you're super clear who your audience is. And if your audience is too general, it's going to be hard to write a really compelling book. If you're speaking to everyone, you're probably not deeply connecting with anyone. Give me a show of hands if you get what I'm talking about here. It's a common principle in business in general, right? That the more honed in and targeted our audience is, and having a target audience doesn't mean other people won't read your book. It just means that that target audience will deeply find your book connects with them, and they'll find it very compelling. The third is unblock yourself. That's why at our book writers retreat in Costa Rica, we do morning yoga. We do, little 2-minute meditations to get you really connected with your higher self, because you can't write the book from the place of ego. If it's like checking an item off your do list, you probably will get words down on the page, but you will not get a highly effective book that is really aligned with your internal guidance. That's going to be the kind of book that's really going to move audiences, right? So this one naturally flows from unblock. Once you're unblocked, you want to be able to narrate from your higher consciousness. When source or the universe writes the book, you're going to have an exquisite book that's able to meet people where they're at, that's able to meet people in their pain or the problems that they're having and take them to a much higher plane, right? The other thing is you want to understand how to compel your reader. That is a skill set. Learning compelling writing is a set of techniques that you learn for how you write a book in a way that people can't put the book down. And then finally, I mentioned this earlier, you want to have a book posse, okay? And my half step is just have fun, okay? Now, a lot of people say, well, isn't that a given? Why do you write have fun on here? If you're not having fun with writing your book, the book will never get done, right? So you got to find ways to make the writing of your book really fun. That's why I used to teach this stuff as an online program that would take people 6 months. They'd come on a call once a week. And I realized I got way better results with pulling people live down to Costa Rica in a really fun environment where they're locked away. They've got no distractions from their household environment. They're in paradise, so they're really enjoying themselves because there's monkeys and toucans and all kinds of stuff. And it's very easy to connect with higher consciousness when all this demanding environment isn't around you, and all of a sudden the book just pours out, right? And we actually do achieve people walking away with a already completed first draft of their book in only 7 days when they get themselves in the right environment with the right support, okay? So let's talk about some of these a little deeper, okay? So we mentioned this one earlier. You either want to remove the distractions from the environment or remove yourself from the distracting environment, okay? The second one is way easier. You talk to anyone who's gotten a book written rapidly, they probably went and rented a cabin in the mountains somewhere or rented an Airbnb or whatever, and they got themselves out of their home environment because the home environment has way too many distractions, okay? This one's a big one, and I'm not going to dive too deep on this one just because we don't, this is a topic for a lot longer than a 1 hour call. But when we talk about aligning your outline with your target audience, we're not only talking about figuring out who your target audience is. So who's that ideal reader you have? When you picture 1 or 2 people reading your book and really having breakthroughs, who do you picture? Like, is it just a retired person or is it a retired man? Is it a retired man that worked in corporate? Is it a retired man that likes golfing and has dogs? Like, try and actually get as specific as possible to this. But when you do this, we want you to create an avatar. And by that, I mean, write a fictitious bio of the exact person you're writing to, or a real bio if you want. Like if you actually have a favorite client and you're writing the book for that one person who's your favorite client, you will write a much more compelling book if you're very clear on specifically who you're writing that book for. But then what you want to do once you're clear who specifically you're writing that book for, you want to make sure that you are writing that book outline in a way that matches their ideal personality. So what I mean by that is not every book outline looks the same. If your target audience is engineers and accountants and highly analytical, highly methodical people, your book outline should start with hardcore science and facts and figures because they want to dive into the science first. They want to know you know what you're talking about. And then you might have a story that's compelling, or you might go story facts, right? And if you read Malcolm Gladwell, how many here have read some of Malcolm Gladwell's books? He's one of the highest best-selling authors in the self-help world. He has a formula to every chapter. And if you look at his formula, he hits every single personality type in the formula for his chapters. So the analytics get what they need. The visionaries, the spontaneous fun ones get what they need. The leaders, the competitive drivers get what they need. And there's an order to how he presents these chunks. So it's really important to understand who you're writing to and align the formula for each chapter to who you're writing to. Make sense? Give me a thumbs up if you're following me right now. Beautiful. Okay. Then basically, once you're clear on what your chapter outline is, you're creating a detailed structure for each chapter that is aligned with that personality type. Okay. Now, this next one, narrate from higher consciousness. I think a lot of you are probably already doing this to some extent, right? You really get tuned in to your highest self when you're writing, and then you start to just pour the book out onto the page. The distinction I want you to notice here, though, is if you're writing from higher consciousness and you don't have a good structure to pour the book into, i.e. a really solid book outline with really good chunks, then it's sort of like pouring water onto the floor and the water just disperses everywhere and there's no power or intention to it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Water channeled into a channel that has a specific direction it's going and a specific structure around it is one of the major forces of nature. Okay, so you don't start with narrating from higher consciousness. You start with giving yourself a structure, and then you tune into higher consciousness and pour the book into that structure. Give me a hands up if you're following me, or a thumbs up. Give me a reaction, right? Everybody clear what we're doing? This distinction here, like I should have told you all to sit up on the edges of your seat before I told you this one. Because when people get this distinction here, this is the number one thing that gets them moving forward on their book projects. That's why at our Write Your Book in a Week retreats we do in Costa Rica, we do a lot of time making sure you show up with a really good structure, so that when we get you in that Zen state where you really feel good about you're in alignment with your own source, when you're in alignment with higher consciousness, you've got a very powerful structure that you're pouring the book into. Okay? So there's different ways to do this. Okay, you might invite your ancestors or your heroes to write your book. You might channel your inner elder. That's just you energetically connect with a version of yourself that's 20 or 30 years older than you are now, that's a lot wiser and all-knowing. You can write the book as your inner elder. There's lots of different techniques you can use to help align with higher consciousness to get the book out. And we will experiment with various techniques with you when you come to the Book Writers Retreat in Costa Rica. I'm saying that specifically for Roger because he's already signed up, and so's Monique, right? But we do a lot of work to get you able to just then sit and pour each section out very powerfully, right? And if you've only got 30 or 40 sections to write, sometimes getting one out in 20 minutes is very doable, right? Once you're in the zone of how you write powerfully. Okay, this next one is compel your reader. Okay, and this usually comes down to great storytelling. Okay, so great storytelling involves a couple things. It's not just great stories, but it's great stories told in a way that brings the reader right into the action. Okay, this is a huge topic, so I'm not going to be able to cover this topic today, but when I work with writers in depth, we do a lot of work to teach you. There's 5 basic techniques to writing in a really compelling way, and the best writers know them. Okay, that's all it comes down to. This is a learned skill, and it's not that hard to learn. It's just there's not that many people teaching it. Okay, so this one, I don't want you to worry about this one. This is one that you can pick up, but you do need to learn to write in a very compelling way. This is the difference between a book that gets onto the bestseller list and maybe stays there a week, and a book that gets onto the bestseller list and stays there indefinitely, because people can't put the book down when your storytelling is that good. They will stay up way too late reading it. So one of the things we teach at our Book Writers Retreat, we have exercises we work you through. We teach how to edit a book to get higher reader engagement. So that is a skill set, it's a checklist you go through, okay? Actually, let me give you a couple techniques really quick, just because I think we have enough time, and I want to make sure you have some really tangible takeaways. You guys okay if I do this like rapid fire? Because I know we don't have much time. Okay. One of the biggest ways you can make your book way more engaging is short sentences. Okay. The human default is that we write in really long sentences. And almost everyone who writes does this. Their first draft will have very long engaged sentences, because that's the way our brain works. We put together very complex thoughts and they come out onto paper. And you'll see you have sentences that often have 5 or 6 phrases in them. The more you shorten your sentences down, the more you get rid of any words that are more than 3 syllables long, the more you make it easy to read for the reader, the more they will be compelled to keep going. Everybody following what give me a thumbs up if you're following what I'm saying here. Yeah, okay, perfect. So in other words, write the book how you write the book. Like, don't worry too much. And as you edit more, you will get better at being able to write in a very compelling way. But the first time you write, it's not going to be that compelling. I hate to break it to you, but a lot of people, even if it comes from higher consciousness, it's not going to be that compelling because you're going to have really long sentences. You're going to use a lot of big words. You might use technical jargon from the industry. The more you can simplify it, and I'm not saying never use big words, okay? Sometimes that's the only word you can use. Sometimes a big word is really important. But if every second or third word is a 4 or 5 syllable word and your reader has to pause to think about what that word means, and there is a version of that word that is simpler and easier and more in common use, and your reader can just say, oh yeah, I know what that means. The more you stall your reader with having to think about what you meant by that sentence, the slower it is for them to read your book, the less compelling it is, and the less likely they will stay up late reading it. Give me a nod if you're following what I'm saying here, right? So one of the things we do in Costa Rica at our book writers retreat is we get the participants to edit each other's books. Like, so we pair people up in partners because it's a lot harder. How many of you find it, I can't edit my own work? How many of you are like that? Like, how many of you find it hard to edit your own work and see what needs to be done? But how many of you find it uber easy to edit somebody else's work, right? And that's really what it comes down to. So there's 5 different things that can help make your writing more engaging. That's one of the biggest ones right there. I'm not going to be able to cover all 5 on today's call because I'm rushing to get under the time limit that Monique gave me. Thank you, Monique. I love you for having me on. But the final one that's a major step is have a book posse. That's why we started getting way better results when we started to do our Write Your Book in a Week in Costa Rica, rather than having online programs. Because when you're in an isolated environment with a group of people, you're automatically each other's book posse. At the meal times, we will stop and say, who's working on their book title? Who's working on their chapter titles? Who wants some feedback? And sometimes, how many of you have ever found that a group think comes up with brilliant stuff when like what you had was probably pretty good, but you put it out to a group think and it's just like brilliant starts to come forward because the ideas start feeding on each other, right? And you get a bottle of wine and a group of people over dinner and it's amazing what gets created, right? So if you're not coming to Costa Rica, I highly encourage you, get a group of friends together periodically over a meal with a cup of tea or a bottle of wine and have them brainstorm some of the major elements of your book with you to see if they think they're funny and engaging and compelling, because that becomes really important. Okay. So have your book posse. They can help you with things like your book titles, your chapter titles, what the exercises should be in each chapter, all kinds of stuff you can use your book posse for. Okay. So that's my 6.5-step formula that, that basically gets you from here to there in under a week, if you really focus on it, okay? And I have had great results with writers actually getting their book poured out in a very short amount of time when they follow this formula, okay? I wanted to take a moment to talk about the retreat coming up in Costa Rica. I had Monique's permission to do this because she thought it might really serve you, so thank you, Monique, because there might be 1 or 2 of you on the call that really want to join us in Costa Rica, okay? So our next one, we do these retreats twice a year. Our next one is coming up November 23rd to 29th. You would arrive in Costa Rica on November 22nd. So we give you 8 nights accommodation. Your retreat is 7 days. Okay, so you leave the following day after. Okay. This beautiful lady in the photo here is my business partner, Pam Bain, who is also a phenomenal writer. The retreat is taught by both of us because there's elements of this that she's actually way better at than me. So we trade off who's with you in the room, helping you get your book written, okay? But basically everything from environment to writing skill, our retreat is designed to give you everything you need to get you past those blocks and over those hurdles we talked about further, okay? So every day is going to involve group coaching with me on tailor-made topics based on where you're at and where you might be stuck. We do yoga and meditation to get you in the mental space for writing. The yoga is optional, but a lot of people do like to do it. Even just some light stretching in the morning makes a big difference. We give you exercises to dissolve your writer's block and get you writing, okay? And then we give you quiet time in our retreat room to sit with your laptop and write, or you can go off to your room, whatever feels good to you, or you can go sit on the patio. But we make sure you have times where now that you've got this structure and you've got the skill set we've given you, now you're going and actually getting some writing done, Okay. We also do dance breaks together as a group just to get the energy flowing and to get you out of your head too much. Okay. We also give you some downtime to enjoy nature in the local area. A lot of people come and stay a couple extra days too, so you can go to the beach or go see a sloth rescue or something like that. Every evening, and actually at every meal, we do debrief sessions. We celebrate your victories and we make sure we keep you moving. So we have a lot of great discussion over the meal times so that we can keep you working on your book projects and keep your momentum up. Okay. So we give you expert coaching and self-study exercises based on where you're at. So not everybody comes to us at the same place. So we tailor make our approach to where you're at. Okay. So in essence, what we're doing is we're helping you create a powerful book outline so you can powerfully target your ideal reader. Then we're going to help you create a chapter structure that works for the personality of the readers that you're working with. Because you get, right, there's dominant personality types. If your readers are really spontaneous, fun, visionary types, you're not going to have a chapter outline that has a lot of detail and statistics and science, if that's who you attract. We want to make sure your chapter structure is aligned with who you attract, right? We're also going to give you advanced exercises to make your writing more compelling. I just gave you one, but we have more for other areas. We're also going to help you create a gripping opening chapter to get your readers hooked. How many of you know it's the first 3 pages of your book? If you don't have the reader in the first 3 pages, you've lost them. How many of you experienced that personally reading other people's books, right? Where you pick up a book and if it's just kind of humdrum and you're already bored by the 3rd page, you might be standing in the bookstore or something, you might just put the book down again, right? So we work to help you understand what does a really compelling first chapter look like, okay? Then we help you learn to add texture and color to your writing to keep it light in moments. You want them to dive deep into the emotion in moments. You want them to experience joy and laughter in other moments. And it's that journey of up and down throughout your book that's going to keep them coming back and keep them having the breakthroughs and the transformation that you want. And then finally, we're going to have group work with you to test and improve your writing with your fellow writers. So you'll be working with other partners, okay? And that's going to lead to improving reader engagement with secrets that only best-selling authors know. I've already shared some of them with you today in terms of how it all works, but there's a plethora of them that we're going to be giving you at this retreat, okay? So I have a very deep joint venture alliance with Monique Blotzkill. So we charge $5,485 for this week retreat for Monique's people. And this is just for Monique. We've actually changed the main landing page to reflect this for the next 2 days. We have lowered the price to $28.47. Okay. I'm not a believer in high pressure sales. So if you're thinking about this, let me know. We will hold this price for 48 hours. But if you're not thinking about this, then this price expires in 24 hours. Okay. So you have to let me know if you're thinking about it and you want us to hold the price because we're going to change the website back. Okay. And the point of this is because you're coming from Monique's people, we know you're already at a pretty tuned in place. It's easier for us to work for you. It's less work. We know if you're coming from Monique's audience, we've experienced that before. Okay. So here's what your package includes. It includes your course tuition, which we have reduced to $17.90 for you. So you get an entire week retreat for only $17.90. We're giving you 8 nights of shared accommodation for $630. And 7 days of meal package. Okay, so that's what's included in that price for you. Okay, and yes, we can accommodate special meal requests. So we set up a special link for Monique, if you wouldn't mind putting that link in the chat. And I promised Monique I would wrap it up by 10:02 so that there was time for her to do some additional stuff. And also if there was any questions, I can stay on after the top of the hour if there's more questions or people want more from me. But that's basically it in a nutshell. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Monique, to keep piloting. So.
Perfect. I love it. Oh my God. I think, everyone that's at the edge of considering writing a book, right? I think that you probably are all very excited about the possibility of not just writing a book, but really turning it into a bestseller, right? And thank you, Teresa, for sharing all the golden nuggets. I know if I think of anyone on this planet about getting help, not only to write my book, but also getting it out and really making it matter, right? Because a lot of people write books and they end up on shelves, you know, or in boxes or whatever else, right? Well, if I think of anyone, it would be you. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
I know you know that I'm gonna be there. So by the way, that's an extra juicy bonus, everyone. If you want to come,
Yes.
I'm gonna be there. And there's another extra juicy bonus because I know Roger is gonna be there with us as well, right? So I think we're gonna be really, really a power team. And I have to say that you know, I don't think we need to sell this. I think this is gonna be, you know, a lot of people will want to be on that. And you know, again, I just know that you know, this is just such a juicy week ahead, and it's not only a juicy week ahead to write a book and to really build these connections. It will have a massive impact on, you know, on not only on your book and the success you're going to have with the book, that's guaranteed when we work with Teresa, but also on your visibility, on your business, on your being, right? And there's this amazing quote where they say, right, the book that changes your life the most is the one you write.
Very true.
So I just believe that, you know, being there, I think it's just absolutely brilliant and amazing. And you know, getting together live and getting your help on really, as you said, not just writing a book, but writing a book the world's waiting for. Okay, writing a book that really makes an impact. I can't wait. So, but I want to open the space because I know some of you might have questions about the retreat, about you know, writing your own books or anything. You know, I mean, you have the opportunity to have Teresa here right now. And I have to say, Teresa is here with us because she is an amazing friend, because she has been doing this for I don't know how many decades, right?
20 years now, yeah.
Right? And I know that you are actually generously opening this up to us right here, right now. So first of all, thank you for being on, Teresa, and all of you. If you have any questions about writing or publishing books, there's your opportunity right now to ask. So please, you know, unmute yourself, share your question. If you have any, you know, if you have any questions, you can also put it in the chat if you're shy, right? But I don't think anyone here is shy, but if you want to put it into the chat, please do that. What questions do you have, my friends? Just unmute yourself and jump in.
Or throw your hand up or type it in the chat if you wish. A good question is where to stop. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a question. Now, as I keep writing, and I've got it written in journals, I've got it written on my phone. So when I come for the retreat, obviously, what's in my mind is basically compiling this into more of a document and the best structure I can give. Yeah, and come with as much material as possible, obviously. But as I write, what keeps coming into my head is that I'm writing the book for myself, and essentially a person like me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Often your targeted ideal audience is exactly like you. So if you write the book to a 10-year younger version of yourself, like what would I have needed 10 years ago? Or I'm just picking an arbitrary number, but a number that feels good to you. You know what I mean? Then the personality type you're writing to may be you. You get what I'm saying? So if you're someone that likes a lot of facts and details or whatever, then you want to start with the facts and details. So we do have pre-work exercises that we give you before you come to the retreat. Have you had a chance to do the pre-work yet, Roger?
Yeah, I'm going through that now.
Okay, so normally what I recommend is set your book structure up on Google Documents, because then it's really easy to share with other people to test read different elements, right? And set up a structure that's like, okay, here's chapter 1 and here's the different pieces of chapter 1. Like once you have a chapter outline and you know the sections of each chapter, right? So for example, you might have a, just give me a sense, Roger, are you a pretty detailed person or are you more like spontaneous, visionary? Like what's your Myers-Briggs or your Haywood operating style, your colors?
Well, I tend to get a little bit lost in the details, so I have to kind of back myself up. So you're more analytical, methodical? Right? Yes. Yeah. Okay, so a good chapter structure for you, and a lot of structures, like even Malcolm Gladwell is methodical, detailed,
If you look at his writing, he's got a lot of science and research in his books, right? But he always starts with the compelling story, right? And then he explains the science and the analytics behind it. So Malcolm Gladwell's chapter structure is always compelling story first, science and data second. Okay. And then I would recommend next you go to some kind of self-assessment exercise. Okay. And then you could give them a do list. Like here's your takeaways to go do. And that might actually be a lead magnet back to your website to get them doing the exercises on your website. Right.
Right. Right.
So in general, a seed model often works. And I say seed because it's state it, explain it, engage the reader, like through exercises or do list, right? Or exercises, and then give them a do list, right? So if you've got those 4 elements, now there could be a 5th or a 6th element, like in Mass Influence, and I'm sorry, I don't have a copy of it here because I'm at my sister's house in Midhurst. But in my book, Mass Influence, we decided to keep it light, that we would do 2 caricature cartoons every chapter. So I sat down with 2 of my friends, one of them happens to be a professional comedian, to help them brainstorm where we could do comedy in the book. And between them, they came up with, and Pam Bain was actually one of the others, because Pam Bain has a ridiculously good sense of humor. Pam came up with about 5 ideas. Jill Fisher, who's my friend in Vancouver, came up with about 10 ideas. Alicia Datner, who's the professional comedian, came up with like 30 ideas of where we could do caricature comics in each chapter. And that became one of the elements of my chapter structures, right? So every chapter got 1 or 2 cartoons, and I sourced them out on, I think I did Fiverr. I just looked for a caricature writer, and I told him what I wanted the jokes to be, and I needed caricatures to match. And then I forgot to tell him that the people needed to be racially diverse. So he sent me 50 comics that were all white people and mostly women. And then I had to go back and say, oops, here's some more money. Can you make some of them people of color and not all of them women? So he redid them all, right? Not all of them, but a bunch of them, right? And I'm just saying that to tell on myself that even I screw up at times. And I mention that. So if you are doing comics, remember to say things like that when you do them, right? But that was another element that we added in each chapter. I also wanted to keep it light because a lot of my audience are the fun, spontaneous types, the visionaries in the world. That's who I attract. I attract visionaries. Visionaries don't often want to dive into the science. They want to know the science is there, but they shoot me in the head. Don't make me frickin' read it. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, so my book has a few end notes, but very little science in it because that's not my target audience. You follow what I'm getting at?
I do.
So, and I'm very clear who I tend to attract and who I wanted to attract. Right. So there's a little bit of science woven throughout my book. And in fact, it was interesting for me when the book first came out, I was getting like loads of 5-star reviews on Amazon and Barnes. And then there was the occasional review that said something like, this book has no application whatsoever for the corporate environment. And it'd be like a 1-star. And the book says right on it, it's written for entrepreneurs. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, well, no kidding, because it wasn't written for you. Do you get what I'm saying? But any shitty review I got was usually somebody of the wrong target audience trying to read my book and not liking it.
Right.
Okay. So I would highly recommend, look at those exercises again we gave you to prep for the book writers retreat, and actually just start, like, set it up as a set of Google documents. Like each chapter needs these elements, and then start knocking the elements off. Like you might have a bunch of compelling stories, so you chunk them into the different chapters, and then the book structure starts to flow better. Does that make sense?
It does.
Don't get stuck on trying to figure out what the first story of the book is over and over and over again. A lot of people, how many of you have done that? Like rewritten your first chapter 18 times? Do that at the end. It's more obvious what the first chapter should be at the end, because at the end, you'll know what your most compelling story is. And that's the first chapter of the book. What's your most compelling story? Okay.
One last quick question, Teresa.
I know we're at the top of the hour, so I just want to check. I can stay on later, but I just want to presence that in case anybody needs to hop off. Are you able to stay on a little longer, Roger? Or?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I am.
Is there anybody who has to drop off who has like a burning that you really want to ask me a burning question? Okay, perfect. Roger, keep going.
Now is the impression I'm getting is like, okay, how long should the book be? Is there kind of a Goldilocks zone as far as the size of the book?
It really depends. It depends partly on your target audience, but generally shorter books are selling better right now. And
that's kind of what I was thinking too. A better
spaced book, like a tight space book with highly dense text and just a ton of pages in it, is hard for the reader to read, right? So you want to have at least space and a half in your formatting, because you want it to feel light and airy and your reader to be able to read rapidly. The more rapidly your reader can read, the more likely they won't put the book down, the easier you make it for them to read rapidly. You get what I'm saying? So yes. Denser books with a lot of research and detail in them, they might work well for a highly analytical audience, but I would recommend you punch as much of that into endnotes or things like that and take it out of the main body of the book. If you look at Malcolm Gladwell, his books have like 15 pages of endnotes, like where he'll talk about certain research studies or whatever, but he gets it out of the main body of the text so that the analyticals can go read all that if they need it, because analyticals are part of his target audience. He's an analytical, right? But he doesn't lose the rest of us who are just like, oh, shoot me in the head. Don't make me read another paragraph on a research study. Just tell me what the study shows. You get what I'm saying? So.
Very good. Thank you so much, Teresa. Perfect.
I'm excited to work with you on this project, Roger. It's going to be really fun.
It is going to be so fun.
Right. I wonder if Uta or Anne or Monica still have some questions while we're here together. Don't be shy, just jump in. Or Anne, I know you have a juicy book, you know, obviously coming out of you. It sounds like really interesting as well.
A really small book. I call that a booklet because in my mind, I think I don't know how to write. I mean, that's my own block. And I know exactly what I want to say, how I want to help people. And I want that to be short because I think people have a really short attention span. And I think...
So, Anne, can I coach you for a moment?
Of course, avec plaisir.
Does higher consciousness know how to write?
Okay.
You have to not write the book. Higher consciousness is writing the book, right? And if your people have a short attention span, that usually means the dominant personality you attract is the spontaneous, fun personality type.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Same personality type I attract. It's not that the book needs to be shorter. It's the book needs to be way more compelling. Okay. So for you, things like jokes and cartoons and fun pictures, that's what's going to make the book compelling. You don't want it to look like a booklet because otherwise people feel like it's not substantive enough to take seriously. Do you understand what I'm saying? But in your case, I would try and get the book up to at least 120 pages, double spaced, like spaciousness, including cartoons and jokes or things like that. Like you might have little punch out boxes that are exercises, right? So you do want it to be short, but you do not want to produce a booklet because then you don't have the credibility as the #1 international best-selling author. A #1 international best-selling booklet doesn't have the same force. And the present you're giving to your audience by being a #1 international best-selling author, the present I gave to my following was that they would get out of their own way and listen to me because the book existed and that it would stay on the bestseller list for so long. You get what I was saying? It would allow me to coach them because otherwise they've got all this inner dialogue that's going to start coming out. Well, who are you anyway? You're not an expert. I don't need to listen to you. And you know, you didn't charge much. You can't be very good. All of that inner dialogue that gets in all of our way, right? So you need the book to be credible. So it has to be long enough and meaty enough to be credible. But if you look at mass influence, like we put probably 6 or 7 blank pages at the back, we called notes pages, just to give it a little more meat, you know, based on the number of pages the publisher would normally do. We just left some blanks at the back. We put lots of big, spacious punch out boxes with quotes and exercises for them to do to give it spaciousness and mete it out, but it's actually a fairly short book because it gets to the point very rapidly. Here's how you become highly influential. Here's the 10 things you need to know, right? And each of them has a bit of color and engagement to it. And I tell on myself a lot. Telling on yourself is a great thing to do in the book. They want to know you're a human being, right? Especially in the first chapter, telling on yourself is a powerful, powerful thing to do, right? But it's really important that it is a book and not a booklet.
Okay, everyone. Wow, really powerful questions. And wow, Teresa, again, it's been amazing, amazing to have you with us today. Thank you for sharing all your insights, your wisdom, your really very concrete hands-on tips. Okay, I can't wait to be with you in Costa Rica. I know Roger is going to be there with us. I know a few of the people that are here with us today will be joining us as well. Can't wait. So is there any, final words of wisdom or encouragement that you'd like to share with everyone?
I would just say, give yourself permission to take action on your dreams of being a #1 best-selling author, because it will be the best gift you could possibly give the world. And until you take action on your dreams, you're just dreaming, right? So thank you so much for having me. And I really look forward to meeting many of you in Costa Rica.
Right, absolutely. And I love and can't wait. Okay. And I think Costa Rica is just a perfect place, right? I know, knowing it's one of the countries with the highest life expectancy, right? We want to spend as much time as possible there. And writing a book there, right? I will probably also raise the life expectancy of our books, right?
Yes.
And in any case, I really look forward to being in such a secluded, beautiful, natural place, in the guidance of you and Pam as well, right? And it's going to be amazing coming together. And thank you, Teresa, for being on with us today. For everyone that wants to know more about the writing retreat, we're going to share the link with you in the Hall of Fame as well, so you're not missing out. I know a lot of people wanted to be here with us today and couldn't make it, but everyone that was here, thank you, thank you, thank you for having the courage, the dedication, the commitment, and the guts to get your message and share your message and your wisdom with the world in a greater way, through speaking, through writing, and in any way you can. So thank you, Teresa, for being on with us today. Thank you all. And we'll be back with another power session next month again, as you know. But for now, thank you, Teresa. Thank you all. And as we always say, speak up. And I should also add now to write up, speak up, scale up, and impact the world. See you soon, my friends.